Hi guys, and welcome back again to Journey Through to the Centre of the Earth. This is activity 4 for year 8, looking at sedimentary rock. Okay, so as we learned earlier, that there are three main types of rock. There's igneous rock, which we talked about in the previous activity, sedimentary rock, which we're going to be looking at this one, and then metamorphic rock. Okay, so what makes up sedimentary rock? Well, basically you've got a variety of different processes which are occurring in the formation of sedimentary rock. The key thing to understand is it's made of sediment. So sediment is basically rock which has been broken down by a process of weathering. Now obviously we've already been through weathering where the weather actually splits the rock into small boulders, then eventually into pebbles and gravel, etc. And from there it's then carried down under the process of running water and gravity, and it's carried down to an area where it's going to be fairly flat, where there's going to be very little movement of any water. And what will happen is, due to the process of density, it will fall to the bottom of the water and it will sit there. So basically it's then deposited. Now this deposition occurs because the water is very, very slow moving. Because it's slow moving, it will sit on either a riverbed, a lake bed, plateau, or eventually into the seabed or on the oceanic crust. Now what then happens is it will then sit there, and then more stuff, more sediment will be put on top of it, and over millions and millions of years the result is that you get layers and layers of hard sediment compressing all the water out of it. And what will happen is it will compress all the sediment, and anything which is sitting inside that sediment, compress it all together and will form into a rock. Now often this sediment is actually, this sedimentary rock is very, very soft. For example, you can take an example of sandstone or limestone and rub it with your finger and it will eventually break away. Chalk is a good example of a sedimentary rock which has just been compressed and then it's been utilised on a blackboard. So basically what we'll find is that in different areas where there's been water movement, you will find sedimentary rock. So do understand that sedimentary rock is an indicator that basically there was water there at some point, because otherwise how did that sediment get to that area? Now just because there's no water there doesn't mean that at millions of years ago that there was water at some stage. Okay, so let's look at the different types of sedimentary rock that we've got. Well, first up we've got a picture here of shale. Now shale, also known as mudstone, and often occurs again in slow moving water such as lakes, lagoons and river plains, floodplains. And it just gets compressed over various periods of time, and you can see the distinct layers which have been formed in the shale because of the layers of sediment on top of it. Next one we've got sandstone. You're probably pretty well aware of sandstone. Has this lovely sort of beigey colour, often found in seas and lakes, more often where you get sand. So a beach could basically turn into sandstone over a long period of time. They've been compressed and cemented together, and the result is that you get this sandstone, and this is what a lot of architectural buildings have been used with. Conglomerate. Now conglomerate really is when you get gravel or large pebbles. It tends to be in an area where you've got fast moving water, because obviously that's got to have enough energy to carry those rocks, and then what happens is you then get mud which forms in between, and that gets compressed, and the mud basically forms like a sediment, and so you get these different types of rocks all higgledy-piggledy pushed in together and then compressed over a long period of time. Limestone. Now limestone basically will be formed at the bottom of the sea, and it's basically the result of dead sea creatures. It's the shells of the dead sea creatures. They all get compressed together, and as a result they will form limestone, and often in this limestone is where you will find a lot of some of the fossils that we know of today, and we'll look at that in a moment. Coal. Now coal basically is a sedimentary rock. You may not think about it, but it is, and it's actually as a result of dead and decaying matter. Now dead and decaying matter from things like leaves, trees, you name it, gets into the water, tends to be in fairly peaty, swampy areas. All of that vegetation falls down. As it falls down over a long period of time, it petrifies and becomes into this lump of coal. If it gets heated over a period of time, you can then get your crude oil which is formed, and as a result we find coal fields are actually as a result of large forests or areas where there was a swampy environment. Ferns may be living in those areas, and the leaves have been compressed over millions and millions of years and produce this substance called coal, which we then extract through mining, and then we can use it for energy. Now the last one, we've got some ammonite fossils here. Now this just gives you an indication. Fossils basically are where you get a organism which falls into slow-moving water, and what happens is the sediment basically forms around it. Now what will happen is the flesh will decay. In most cases it will decay over millions of years, and what you'll be left with is the calcium bones, and those minerals will then become petrified again into a rock, but their imprint is maintained. And if you split the rock, because it's nice and soft, the result is you'll get the imprint of that fossil. And this is how we've managed to discover a huge number of dinosaurs, where you get the actual bones, the whole organism has been maintained within the rock. Now the thing is that, as you can see here, you've got this T-Rex fossil. The thing is that that animal actually had to die in a specific place at a specific time in order for the sediment to envelop it and then be compressed. That's why we don't find huge numbers of fossils around the world. You'll find a lot of little sea creatures, but you won't find huge animals like these dinosaurs. They will only be few and far between, and only in certain areas, in certain places of the world. So it's very difficult to actually pick up a fossil of this magnitude, of this size, and complete, because obviously all of the conditions have to be right for the bone to be maintained, and then someone's got to go away and find it. And let's face it, it's a big world out there, so trying to identify where these fossils are is not easy. Okay, so I hope that gives you a good indication as to what sedimentary rock is all about and how it's formed. Remember, you've got a weathering, then erosion, then deposition, then compression. That will form your main sediments. Tends to be very soft rock, which can be eroded away very, very easily. Okay, thank you for watching, and join me again when we'll look at the last rock type, which is metamorphic.